Lexie Smith, and I'm an English education major at Fairmont State University. Today, I'm going to be talking to you about the importance of critical thinking skills being taught prior to students' higher education in college. So, students are not really being taught what true reading comprehension and critical thinking skills are before they get into college. This is an issue because we live in a social media dominated world, and we have to teach students how to truly believe what they want to believe, not what others tell them what they want to believe. And this can be solved by simply teaching students what critical thinking skills are, which is something I found to be lacking in my own education before I got to Fairmont State. So I loved English and history classes before I got to college, which is why I'm an English major. And I never really got to discuss things with my peers. None of us were comfortable discussing things with one another, and we often felt like our ideas were not being heard or understood, not only by the teacher, but also by each other. And because of this, we never got to debate, we never got to bounce our ideas off of one another, so we didn't really get that necessary part of our education where you can look at your peers and say, well, this is where we disagree, but we also need to find a common ground place. We never got that, or at least I never got that in my education. And I think that it's important that we teach students how to do these things, and we give them a space where they can debate with other students, or they can talk with their peers, so that way they can figure out that there are people that think differently than them. Their points aren't the only ones that matter, and they should take others' points into consideration, so that way they can think deeply about things. This is especially important in today's society because of things like social media and the news. You shouldn't teach students to take things at face value. You should be teaching your students how to take things in, process them, and then decide what they really think about them, or decide even if it's true, and even if it's morally correct in their brain or in their mind. This promotes creativity in your students because it allows them to brainstorm when they get an idea in their head, and they're like, what does that mean? What does this mean? What do I think about this? And it's, instead of just teaching them, okay, these are the facts, they can process the facts, process the information, and decide what it all means together. They can get a bigger picture of things, rather than just a bunch of minuscule details. This will make higher education easier for these students inevitably, because you will be critically thinking throughout your entire life, especially when you get to college. You'll be thinking critically and deeply about what you want to do with your life when it comes to picking your major. You'll be thinking critically about what you want to do in your major specifically when you go into the work field. And you'll be thinking even more critically about what makes you happy and what you should do with yourself in order to fulfill your own happiness. This can all be solved by just teaching students how to think critically. So the first step to doing this is to create a participatory environment for these students before they get to higher education. This can be done by opening up debates in class, or even letting students write their ideas down on a piece of paper and like shuffling it all up, and then the teacher reads it off, and then the rest of the students decide if they agree or disagree with this student. And the most important part of creating a participatory environment is to make sure that the students feel as though they can be heard, because they will not speak up if they feel like their opinion doesn't matter. And so you have to create an environment by making it warming, welcoming, saying that everybody is welcome here, saying that we might disagree, but we're all going to be respectful. But you can't just say these things, you must also enforce them. And you can also provide good materials for your students to think critically about. If you give a student a Harry Potter book, and that's the only book you ever give them, they're not going to get very far with their critical thinking skills. You have to give them age-appropriate material, you have to give them good material so that way they can think critically. Like, for example, The Great Gatsby has many layers, and it provides a great starting point for students to start thinking critically, because it has so many different theorizations, so many different flows throughout the storyline that students can use to create their own narratives about what the characters are actually doing. You don't even have to just use books. You could also use technology, you can use artifacts, you can use something as simple as a pencil and just decide what the student wants to do with it, especially if they're younger. And it is important that we start teaching these critical thinking skills from a very young age. We shouldn't just start when students are in the 9th grade or the 10th grade. We should start before then. We should start in elementary school and pre-K even. Just start asking students what they actually think about things, because that will help them realize throughout the rest of their life that what they think is actually important. And the most important step to critical thinking and creating an environment where you can teach critical thinking is creating and developing a community with your students. Students will be more comfortable using all of these tools that I've listed if you make them feel as if they matter to you. So you have to ask them about their day. You have to create a relationship with your students. If you don't do any of this, they won't feel comfortable thinking critically in your class. They probably won't even want to. I know whenever I was in high school, students don't want to learn about something where they don't feel like they're welcome in that class. They don't enjoy going to the class. So you have to make sure that whenever you are teaching, that you're making every single student feel as if they are an individual and that they matter. Overall, it is important that we teach students what critical thinking is. We haven't been doing that in the last, I don't even know how many years. And you have to create an environment for your students to feel comfortable. These tools will help students in their everyday lives as they go into adulthood, as they consume media, as they consume social media, and they decide what they really believe, what they really think. Teaching critical thinking in schools will overall create a better society and a better place for everyone. Thank you for listening. I appreciate you very much, and I hope you have a wonderful day.